wanted to talk to you about an interesting topic, and that is that lately I've been seeing a lot of news articles written about witchcraft and talking about how witchcraft is really on the rise. It's becoming more popular within society, and I've seen this written about in like Vogue, Vice, a bunch of other blogs, as well as many mainstream news publications. So I think it's kind of interesting and exciting, an idea and something I wanted to talk to you guys about. For this video, I kind of wanted to just briefly discuss maybe why some of these things are happening. Why is witchcraft becoming more popular, and why now? And of course too, I want to hear your thoughts on why you think witchcraft is becoming more popular. So definitely in the comments after watching, let me know your thoughts on this. And so the first thing that I think is kind of interesting is that as more and more established news sources talk about this, it's kind of creating more respectability for witchcraft within like kind of the larger society or the larger community. So while there's of course always going to be a contingent of people that are going to immediately push back and, you know, message and say like, oh, it's evil and things like that, I think in general, as more news organizations and bloggers start talking about witchcraft, it's going to cause a lot of people to become more knowledgeable about it, and knowledgeable about, you know, the different forms, the various aspects of it. And I think too, especially with millennials and the generation that's even younger than millennials, they're very willing to quickly Google something, like Google what is witchcraft before making a judgment, which is really good. And the world too is becoming so diverse that there are just so many different types of people in the world. And at the same time, I think witchcraft as a kind of spiritual practice too is extremely diverse. So on the one hand, it makes witchcraft really difficult to define, but that's also, in my opinion, kind of its strength, because more and more people are able to kind of form their own spiritual practice using what they've read and what they've studied and form it into something that works best for them. And I think that's kind of very different than a lot of other spiritual practices out there that are kind of top down, where you're told specifically this is what you do, and you're reliant on that that kind of relying on others who have more power in society. With witchcraft, you're really able to study on your own, make your own judgments, make your own decisions, and define what your own spiritual practice is going to be. And at the same time too, that's so much easier now because we have the internet, and with the internet there's just so much information at our fingertips, and that's really changed up everything, even within kind of a larger pagan community. I mean, you don't need to be pagan to practice witchcraft, but I find a lot less emphasis based on traditional structures kind of hierarchy, where there's someone that you need to find that's going to be your mentor and teach you all of these different practices and things like that. Nowadays, you can kind of bypass that, for better or worse. I mean, that's the debate. But you can kind of bypass that and get right into reading and learning for yourself. So, of course, you know, there's a lot of stuff online that's like no good, but there's a lot that's great that's out there too. So you're really taking an active role in your own spiritual practice and learning and kind of figuring out what works for you. And of course, you know, in addition to the internet, we have social media, and that's allowed people to come together from all over the globe to kind of talk about witchcraft or talk about Wicca or paganism or things like that. So we're able to learn from each other from all over the world, as well as having access to countless, you know, news articles, blogs, and books so easily. It's just so much easier now to gain access. And for those that, you know, do, you know, feel concerned or a bit weirded out, you know, by the term witchcraft, it's so easy to just tell them, you know what, take a minute, do some research, and then come back to me with your opinion after. I mean, you're still always gonna get the haters, and I'm sure I'll have a couple down below who say that, you know, oh, you're going to hell or things like that. But I think people are so much more open now to holding judgment until they do a little research. Another thing too that's connected with the whole social media thing is that it's taking witchcraft out of kind of the new age and hippie movement and really kind of forming into something that has a very kind of high level of aesthetic integrity, as well as, I mean, to be honest, the cool factor is involved. Social media like Instagram, you know, is making it cool. I mean, for better or worse, I mean, that's happening. And you know, we've also had the resurgence in pop culture too. I mean, you had American Horror Story Coven, and then you had, I think in 2015 was the movie The Witch, which was very successful. So there's all these great people out there who are bringing their own creativity into discussing kind of witchcraft and what it is. And as someone who is, I'm like a full-time tarot reader, so I'm always looking out for the creative individuals through social media and finding people that are creating decks or doing something interesting or creating a new blog where they might be discussing paganism. So there's so much that I see that's out there that I find is very encouraging. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. Like, the more great content that is put out there, the more people are going to find it and become interested in it, and then the more content they're going to create themselves. So it's really kind of just building the community of people who are interested in learning about alternative spiritual practices like witchcraft is just really just gonna keep on growing and expanding. And I find that really interesting regardless of your own personal spiritual beliefs. I think it's great that there are so many people out there who are actively searching and seeking and finding something that works best for them. And another thing too, which could be a whole other video, is statistically people are moving away from mainstream religions. And there's, you know, been countless, you know, articles written in the New Yorker, the Atlantic, New York Times, about trying to answer why people are leaving these mainstream religions. And I think it indicates that the people just aren't happy with certain religious structures, that just because it's part of the status quo and it's been around, you know, forever, and it has this power within our society, that's not enough. It still needs to inspire you. And I've found in my personal experience that all of my friends, the ones that had grown up, most of them had grown up Christian, that when they, you know, reached adulthood, they just stopped going to church once they felt they didn't need to anymore, and they became agnostic. And a lot of people in my generation have left established religion and become agnostic. And a small contingent of those people are also seeking out and learning alternative spiritual practices. So I think while witchcraft is going to continue to increase, people are also becoming more interested in the religious component of like Wicca, and adding in, you know, witchcraft practices within Wicca or paganism, or, you know, other religions like Buddhism, just really kind of seeking out what else is out there, not being just satisfied with what they were brought up with. And, you know, the internet too is a huge part of that. You're really able to discover so much more information now and make those judgments for yourself. And to be honest, it's interesting to a lot of the articles have been writing about the connection between like contemporary witchcraft and feminism. There was the whole like Hex Trump, you know, thing that went on. I'm not going to get into that here, but But there is this huge component of female empowerment that's connected with witchcraft, because it's inherently about kind of striving to make changes within your life, which is a very empowering concept, taking your life into your own hands and not being satisfied with the way things are, but trying to form the world to fit into your own goals. And when you look at that, that seems very different than like traditional kind of spiritual practices or organized religions that don't embrace the powerful concept of the female. I don't want to tread on any toes here, but I think that they're kind of stuck in this kind of antiquated concept of women, and that people don't really feel as comfortable with that anymore. People are seeking out something, women especially, are seeking out something that empowers them. When I first learned about Wicca when I was a teenager, I found it super empowering that I didn't even think that the concept of a goddess could exist. And here there's a goddess and a god, and they're equal power, of equal importance within the world. And once you find that, you're just like, well, I'm not going back, because I like this beautiful balance that is expressed in this way. So I think that's kind of part of it too. Women are finding witchcraft as empowering. They're finding other spiritual practices as empowering, and they're not going to be satisfied with something that expects them to be submissive. Women don't really want to be submissive anymore. So I think that's a big part of it too, honestly. And the last kind of thing I think is that maybe this is just my personal kind of concept, but witchcraft forces you to kind of work with nature, work with the nature around you, and regardless of whatever you're specifically practicing and its effectiveness, the very act of trying to understand and incorporate nature into your spirituality, I think really makes people happy, or it makes me happy. I like being more attuned to the changing seasons, paying attention to these things, working with nature, interacting with it, and you know, our place within that world, and understanding that. And I think it's very fulfilling to me, and I think that's fulfilling to a lot of other people too. People they want a way to connect back in with nature, but they don't want to do it from like kind of a hippie or a new age lens. They want to try and find something that's somehow more modern, more contemporary, but still involves kind of working with and incorporating nature within your own spirituality. So this was a bit of a ramble, honestly, but I just find this so interesting that it's becoming more popular, and I wonder where this is going to lead. As more people leave mainstream religions, do you think they're just going to become agnostic and stay that way? Do you think they're going to continue to seek out alternative forms of spirituality, continue to seek out things like witchcraft, or seek out things like Wicca? And what do you think about that? So please do message in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and thank you guys so much for watching. It really means the world to me. I love talking to you through YouTube now, and through Instagram and all of those things. So I hope you're all doing well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.